Hello, it's Amy again. So we left off at the word references. I'd like to reiterate that there should be a page break above the word references and that it is centered with only the first letter capitalized, no bolding, underlining, or quotation marks are used. Remember that your entire paper is in 12-point font Times New Roman and double spaced. Now notice that all of the references, regardless of source, have a hanging indent. This is when the first line of something is flush left and all of the following lines are indented. You can do this by going back to the top of your screen, and in the bottom right corner of the paragraph box, there's that same teeny arrow you changed the spacing with. Click on it. Come down, the second option is indentation. Move over to special, drop the menu, choose hanging, and then OK. A word on alphabetizing. Within each reference, the names of the authors stay in the same order as they're presented to you. This is because in the article, the individual who did the most work is cited first, the second strongest contributor is cited second, and so on. Taking them out of order would be taking credit from those who deserve it. However, individual articles do get alphabetized, as you can see in the example. Now let's go through the basic format of a journal article, a book, and a website. You can follow along on the example page with a specific reference to see how it works, and I'll go through it character by character because APA is really specific. We'll begin with a journal article, and you can follow along at the third reference, Garcia Valcrcel. Now you might notice really quickly that nowhere on this example page is there listed a first or a middle name for any author, and that's because in APA we offer only the initials of the first and middle name. So let's start with the first author's last name, only the first letter capitalized, and you can see here if there's hyphen, then the first letter of the second last name is also capitalized. The last name is followed by a comma and a space, and then the first initial period. If there was a middle initial, there would be a space, the middle initial period, and the comma would follow that. In this case, there isn't, so the comma simply follows the period that follows the first initial. Then there's a space, and you enter the second author the same way you did the first. An ampersand, we never write out the word and in a citation. Ampersand, space, and finally the third author is entered the same as the first two. Notice there's no comma following the last author, it simply ends with a period. Then there's a space, opening parenthesis, and the date. In the case of a journal article, we give only the year, and closing parenthesis, period. Another space, and the title, which will be given all in lowercase letters with the exception of the very first letter and any acronyms that it contains. So that's written out in regular type and followed by a period, and then there's a space. Now notice that the title of the journal and the volume number are in italics. So in italics, the journal's name, comma, space, the volume number, comma, and then in regular type, you put the page range. That's followed by a period, a space, and then if a DOI number is offered, you don't capitalize DOI. You simply put lowercase DOI colon, and without a space you enter the DOI number. If the article has no DOI number, then in place of the DOI number you enter the words retrieved from with only the R in retrieved capitalized, and then you enter the URL. There are no extra spaces, colons, semicolons, or dashes used between the word from and the URL, and there is no period following the URL. Instead of going over and over the very specific formatting of APA, I'll point out the differences between a journal and the other two types of reference. This will not only help you to be able to distinguish between the reference types by looking at the citation, it'll also encourage you to continue looking back to the journal article for guidelines. And this is good because you'll use them often as references in a variety of classes. The second citation listed, CALFE, is a book. Notice that the author and date are the same as a journal, but the title is different. It'll still have only the first letter and any acronyms capitalized, but here the title is italicized. It is then followed in plain print with a location, with standard capitalization, in this case Washington, with a capital W, comma, and then DC capitalized, colon, and the publisher, period. Nothing more is required. And finally, we'll take a look at a website. This one is even easier than a book. The very first reference listed is a website, and the benefit of the first reference is that you get to see how to enter many authors. I will be referencing the fifth citation, Leopold, and encourage you to follow along. As you can see, the authors are cited just as they are in the other two types of citation. Notice now that the date is entered differently. Still in parentheses, you'll enter first the year, followed by a comma and one space. Next is the month written out. Don't abbreviate it or use a number. One space and then the day of the month numerically. The title is only capitalized at the first letter and acronyms, consistent with the other two types of reference, and is italicized like a book. Here in regular type you enter the words retrieved from, followed by the URL of the site in the same way that you would on an article, and you're done. In conclusion, please remember that APA formatting is very specific and that each type of reference is somewhat different in formatting. If you're referencing anything not listed here, look it up and make sure that you're citing it correctly. It really does matter. Best of luck with your research.